What's up, everybody, and welcome back to a Shelby GLHS version of Project Time Garage. Yep, that's right. Right back to work on the Project Shelby GLHS that's been on and off of this channel now for what seems like 30 or 40 years, but in reality is probably about 2 years. If you guys haven't already seen this car, I'm going to stick a link up here to the video series of it. It's kind of a special car in that it's one of 1,000 Shelby cars that were made in '87. So Carroll Shelby cars that were made in '87. Very interesting backstory on them anyway. Like I said, the link will take you to all the things on the car. In a previous video, I put a fuel pump in this car. And I put a fuel pump in the car because, well, being a turbo car and running, you know, I plan to run a little heavier boost than what the factory was and all that. I wanted to make sure that I had good fuel delivery. Last thing I wanted to do is lean this thing out and pop something, especially after I just put a head gasket on it because, well, like I said, that's a whole nother thing that the series will explain to you. But anyway, I put that fuel pump on there, and that's what's important about that is that the issue we're having today is the car won't start and the fuel pump is not running, right? That's the second time this has happened to me. The first time this happened to me, it was in a pretty precarious situation. It was backed up really close to a wall and the fuel pump's back there on that side. Really wasn't easy to get to, and I had all my test junk out trying to figure out what was going on. And somewhere I inadvertently touched something and it started working again, and it worked for months. Absolute months. Well, fast forward to the other day, I went to get in the thing and move it out of here, and it just turns over. It won't actually light up. So I don't hear the fuel pump running. That's what's going on. What I do know is that I have spark, right? I can spray some starting fluid in there and bump it over and the car will start. So the reason that's important is because the same control circuit that feeds power to the fuel pump also feeds power to the coil. So that'd be the ASD relay. And on this car, if the ASD relay weren't working, I wouldn't have fuel or spark. Since I have spark, I should have fuel. So basically I'm going down the road of, for some reason, I'm either not getting power back to the tank at the pump, or the pump isn't grounded right, or something like that. So I'm probably gonna be chasing a gremlin like that. But anyway, I wanted to make this video today on getting this car up and started because, well, it's summertime and I want to get out and enjoy it some. Plus, we received this in the mail to do a review / test on. This is the P100 circuit tester from TopDiag. What is this, you ask? Well, it's kind of like a multimeter, and it's kind of like a test light, and it's kind of like a power supply, and it's kind of like a third hand helping you out, all rolled into one device. Basically, if you have multimeters and test probe kits and stuff like that in your toolbox, you'll end up finding this pretty handy. I'm gonna stick an Amazon link down below. It's where you can find one of those. You can pause the video. For heaven's sakes, don't stop the video because you want to finish watching the whole thing all the way to the end, complete with credits and whatever else might happen. But anyway, put a link down there in the words and description and all that stuff where you can find one of these. But anyway, I figured today would be an excellent time to break this tool out and do some troubleshooting on this car. I mean, the car needs to be able to run, and I have a tool that might make life easier, so it's going to combine both of them into one video. So let's get started and see where the troubleshooting leads us, shall we? Look, it comes in a handy little carry case. Now, this isn't the way the thing was packed from the factory. I've already been involved in this thing and I've used it a few times because they're just pretty handy. So it comes with a couple of different ends that we can use, and in this case I'm going to use this one because I'm just going to use it kind of like a multimeter. And if you've never used this kind of tool before, it's not like a typical test light. Actually, what you do is you actually plug this thing right onto the battery, positive and negative, and that powers the tool. And since the tool has access to battery plus and battery negative, you can actually use it to inject ground or inject 12 volts to different things. So that's pretty handy, and I'm sure we're going to be using that here in a second. This is just an extension cord to be able to, you know, hook up the tool to your battery and still be able to stretch it all the way to the back of your car and use. Pretty long cord. I'm going to say this right here is probably every bit of, probably almost 20 feet, I would guess. I don't know what that is in meters. I'll plug up there, and I'll connect this to the battery. Tell you what, that little spring right there, in addition to making that noise right there, like 1,000 times every time you're working on the car, literally everything gets hung in it. It's amazing. And this end here, and we're powered up. Look, it even has a handy flashlight on it. So this thing will do a whole lot of stuff, and I'm not going to jump into all of that right this second. But for right now, we're going to use it in multimeter mode. So if I hit OK, this is simply just a multimeter. And on the left here, you can see that I can do DC voltage, I can measure resistance, and I can do a diode test. And you would select those with this up and down directional pad here. So this would be your resistance, this would be your diode, and then down again gets you right back up to the top with voltage. First thing I want to see is, what does my battery voltage look like? 12.7. All right, a charged battery, but not a fully charged battery. So these cars have a diagnostic connector here right above where the coil is, just hanging out. It's a six-way plug, kind of shaped like an L. This is also where you would plug in your OBD1 scanner if you had one of those. And in the top corner, you're going to see a dark blue with a yellow tracer wire. And if you ground that wire and you have the key on, engine off, it will actuate the ASD relay and turn on the fuel pump. So let's go do that now. Okay, keys on. Now the other cool feature of this tool that I really like is I can go back to the home screen and choose the active test. And basically, the active test will allow me to send power or send ground to this tip. Now I have a few options. So for example, let's start with latch. So if I am set to latch, it tells me if I press the up arrow, then power will be applied here. If I press the down arrow, ground will be applied here. So up, power, again, turns it off. Down, ground, again, turns it off. Now pulse, that would, in this mode, if you turn on power, then it will just basically turn power on and off, kind of like a, think of it like a signal light flasher, I don't know. And this is where you can set your amperage draw. Right now we're set at 18 amps. And finally we have a momentary option. So on, off, on, off. So basically as long as I hold this button, I can supply either power or ground there. In this case, we're going to use latch because we're going to supply power to this ASD relay or to this diagnostic connector, and we're going to see if we can hear the fuel pump right. You'll have to take my word for it because it's hot in here and you hear the air conditioner running behind me. So on the dark blue and yellow, there. So I hear a relay here snapping, but what I don't see or what I don't hear is a fuel pump running. So I'm going to go back there and listen. I do not hear a fuel pump. But just to be safe, while that is currently strapped, I'm going to try to start the car. May as well. Just as I suspected, big old nothing. So that tells me that the ASD relay is doing its job, which we thought it was doing its job because the coil works, and that's the same circuit that powers power to the coil. So the next thing we have to figure out is back there at the tank, do we have, are we getting power or are we not getting power? And the way we're going to figure that out is I'm going to leave the key on, engine off. I'm going to ground this dark blue and yellow just straight to the battery with a quick jumper. That should make all the conditions proper for the pump to turn on. And then we're going to take this back there, back in multimeter mode, and see what we have. Do we have power or do we have ground? What are we missing? So that's next. All right, I'm going to take my handy dandy back probe. This is a part of a kit that I bought on Amazon a long time ago that has proven to be pretty well invaluable. Also, if you'll notice, the green dot is still on, indicating that I'm still supplying ground to this because I forgot to turn it off. And that's usually not a problem, but if I'd forgotten and left it to power and laid this tool down, that would have shorted right to the ground. So remember to turn that off if you're following along. We'll go into the dark blue yellow like that. And what do I want to ground to? How about the water neck? There. Or the, not the water neck. Yeah, water neck housing. Let's call it that. All right. So that's all shorted and done up. At this point, we should be able to take our meter to the back and see which component we're missing, power or ground. So I'll escape out of here and I'll go back up to the multimeter mode. There we go. Okay, the fuel pump for this car is down here where all this junk is in the floor. Now the cool part about this car is, well, is the kinked fuel hose. That's really not a cool part about it, but the cool part about this car is this is the sending unit and everything, so it's really easy to get to it. And if you'll notice, there is a bare spot right here on this connector, or on this this wire. That's evidently where I looked for this the last time and forgot to put it back together. But anyway, we should be getting voltage back here now. So let's see. We are. Look at that. We're getting voltage. 12.3 volts. You can't see that. There. 12.3 volts. So we have power to the pump. And the only other thing we would be missing is ground. So in this case, the gray wire is going to our ground, and that's the next thing we need to check for to make sure that we have a good ground going on here. So I have my back probe, or my my little piercing apparatus, pierced into the yellow wire. I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to choose active, and we're going to latch right onto ground, and that should turn the pump on when I hit this. And it doesn't. Uh-oh. We got a problem. Our pump doesn't work. Yep. We have no fuel pump. That is not good. That is not good at all. Because we know we have power and we know we have ground. Oh. Listen, can you hear that? The pump's running now. Sure is. I have a faulty pump. That's what it is. So I was able to test that I have ground and I have power, and the pump wasn't running. But I just knocked the bottom of the tank a few times and it started working. I bet the car starts now. I can actually hear fuel coming through the lines and going back through the return. How about that? Ooh, my beard's all poofed out there. How about that? Bad fuel pump within, I don't know, this thing may have had 200 miles on it. Probably, if that. Let's see if it'll start. So yeah, that works. So what if I unplug it out of the test port, go reclaim my test leads, see if it'll start just with the ignition now, you know, like with nothing jumped anywhere. Well, that's not aggravating at all. Brand new pump, and not even a cheap pump. It'd be different if I'd, you know, if I'd cheaped out and got a junk pump, but this is a Walbro. It's an actual name brand. I won't get on a soapbox. It takes me a while to get off of those. Okay, so at least that takes care of that. Also, if you're digging this shirt I got on about saving the dipsticks with my logo on the back, at the end of this video, my products will display for purchase. You can also go to YouTube, click on my channel, and go to the store. Buy your merch there. So guys, appreciate you watching. Like I said earlier, you can find one of these down below if you want it. I really want to give a big shout out to TopDiag for sending me this. Always like getting tools like this for review, especially useful tools. And you know, it's funny. Usually whenever somebody sends me a tool for review, the first thing I think is, how am I going to use this? How am I going to do a review or a test on this? Because, you know, you really need to have something that's broken or something that needs repair in order to use a lot of these tools. Well, seems like every time I get a tool, I have something broken. In fact, I think I have something broken about all the time. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but that's where we're at. Guys, I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Tell all your friends about us. I'll see you next time.